Hey guys, how's it going? Phil Monteleone, the Book Peddler here. If you haven't, I hope you like and subscribe to my YouTube channel, The Book Peddler. You can stay up to date on book picks, in-store, out-store activity, book reviews, whole mess of stuff. I let you into a little slice of my world in the book selling business. So I appreciate all the support out there. You guys have been awesome. And this video is going to be buying, selling, and collecting conspiratorial and insider books. I think there would be some general interest out there for some of you. Some of you might not be too interested, so go watch a cat video or something. So, anyways, hey, shout out to Tom Smith. Tom, my brother up in Canada. Think you find this interesting. Now, it's quite a big topic to cover. It's so broad, and I'm going to try to do it justice, but I'm going to break it into a two-part series. This first part is going to be on the business aspect of it. I have seen some of these publications grow significantly in value, and a lot of people are not familiar with them. I think there's reasons behind it, which I'll address in a minute. The second part is going to be on collecting the material, and if you have interest in this kind of stuff, some good publications on where you can start if you're starting to get into this world or interested in these perspectives. This material I have here is what I consider some heavyweight material, and I would not recommend most people to start with some of this stuff if you're interested. But maybe some of it's okay, but that'll be for the second part of the video. Now, I have my notes on the values of these books, but I would like to preface this video a little bit before I get started. The term conspiracy, it's usually condemned without investigation from another party if you bring up something conspiratorial. But for those who study history, you will see patterns, and there is conspiracy throughout, whether that be the founding of this country, Hitler burning his own Reichstag building to blame the Jews, Nero burning Rome to blame the Christians, staged events like the Gulf of Tonkin has been declassified at this point. All throughout history, there are conspiracies to advance political agendas. There are different groups that finance and back individuals or regimes to further a global agenda. And this is all verified. It's verified in a lot of this material here as well. And these people that have written these books, it's coming from the horse's mouth, firsthand sources. There's no aliens and Bigfoots involved, basically. The control of information has always been of necessity for those who are in power. Power never relinquishes itself. Okay, and so the control of that flow is a necessity. Now, someone asked in a comment section as to why the popularity has increased. I believe more and more people are not, people are basically not as trusting in narratives that were force-fed, basically. We also see the suppression of individual voices on social platforms, authors like E. Michael Jones, Catholic scholar Stephen Crowder, who's a very popular YouTuber, who's always supported freedom of speech from any side, has been taken off. And it's really unfortunate, because if these guys have bad ideas or are seen as some type of threat, you combat that with better ideas, but they're not allowing discourse among the public anymore. And it's a sad thing, because when you can't have a proper discourse and sharing of ideas, you're going to have violence as the end result. So we live in some very interesting times. I'm obviously a big believer in freedom of speech. I have a bookstore. I mean, come on. I sell all sorts of different books of all sorts of different fields. I will say this. I'm going to paraphrase this, but Mao, who conservatively killed 75 million of his own people, probably 100 million plus. We really don't know the official numbers, but Mao said that it was not guns and bullets that he was scared of. It was ideas. It was original ideas, unique ideas that can permeate throughout a society and overthrow a tyrannical government overnight. That's what he was scared of. And so again, the control of information, is very desirable to be controlled. Now, I have studied this stuff formally in academic classes, studied it for probably about 13 years solid. I went away from it for a little bit. You can go through down a lot of different rabbit holes. So you got to be careful because there's also a lot of disinformation out there as well. So you got to be critical. But I do believe that, you know, it would be of great benefit to question your perceptions, your beliefs, sharpen your preconceived ideas on things that have happened in the past and things that are happening in our current day environment. And through questioning and critical thinking, you can refine your thoughts. Some of them are tough pills to swallow because, for lack of a better word, we've been heavily conditioned and indoctrinated into the system that we're all born into. And it's not really the modern day education system, what I've found. And also I have books here to show you very prominent voices that explain it far better than I do, but I'm trying to do it justice. But to keep you keep you in a state of compliance, to take the individual out of the picture and encourage more so group think through B.F. Skinner's philosophies, Pavlovian techniques. The people that finance the education system and got it rolling were not really interested in you competing against them, put it that way. But I'll talk about that a little bit later on. So I'm trying not to be too milquetoast about this. But I actually, there's a lot of books that I can't show you on here, unfortunately. I actually know a book dealer that was trying to sell a particular book, and they showed the cover, and he was taken off of his Instagram account for 2 weeks. Tell me it's not going on, it's going on. So it should be a big concern for everybody out there. Absolutely. But anyways, before I get started too, I would like to kind of dedicate this video to a man named Alan Watt. He wrote this called Cutting Through the Matrix, Volume 1, 2, and 3. Alan was a voice of sanity, and he studied this kind of stuff and far more. He dedicated his life to it, and he was a Scottish guy who broadcasted out of Canada. He died recently, and I'm going to miss him a lot. I used to correspond with Alan, and I'll link up his website in the description. And I would recommend maybe you check out, if you're interested in this stuff, some of his YouTube videos. It wasn't his YouTube channels. Other people took his talks and put them up. They're very good. Unfortunately, a lot of them are being taken off of YouTube as well. But a brilliant mind. I have deep respect for him. Listened to him for years, and it's kind of like losing an old friend. And Alan, God bless Alan Watt. He was a credible individual, and so yeah, I think that's enough said. I think he's in a better place now, so hopefully I think he'd be at peace now. But anyways, one thing that he said was, we're going to be going through some massive changes, and the most difficult thing to do will be able to maintain your sanity during all the changes. And so anyhow, these books are pretty revealing. They're by social engineers. They're by technocrats. They talk about world government, depopulation. They involve secret societies. I study the mystery schools. Nothing is new under the sun. Man has always tried to rule over other men. The techniques have been refined. It's a little bit more sophisticated system. There are psychologists, sociologists that work in these think tank groups. Whether it be the Council of Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commission, the Club of Rome, the Tavistock Institute, Royal Institute of International Affairs. These people have great prominence in society and powerful voices. And I want to get started now with these works, and we'll just show you what's going on here. So let's get started. Let's get started with this one. Ecoscience by John P. Holdren, Paul Ehrlich. Population, Resources, Environment. I studied Paul Ehrlich in school. Okay. John Holdren was the head of Obama's Scientific Advisory Board, I believe. Not I believe, he was. Okay, so this book, Ecoscience, what does this talk about? First of all, I picked this book up for $1 at a library sale. Then it was worth between 90 and 100. Today, 150 to 200. What are these guys talking about? Paul's supposed to be an ethicist, right? So I believe he'd be called into a courtroom if there was an ethical decision to be made. Voice of prominence, Holdren, obviously, as I said before, position of power and influence. What are they talking about in this book? I even have it tabbed off. They're talking about population reduction. They're talking about sterilizing food, water, and air to decrease the population. They also talk about forced sterilizations, legal forced sterilization. It's a little bit disturbing, you know what you're reading. In this field, if you get into the eugenics movement, some of those books have some really great value. So if you're out there on the hunt, anything eugenics based is generally pretty interesting, and people that study this are going to be into it. But this is one of those big money books, and so yeah, a little disturbing, but quite a history there. Now this is not going to be in any particular thing that I'm pulling from. It's going to be random, okay, guys? So, and let's go with this one. New Lies for Old and the Perestroika Deception by Anatoly Golitsyn. He was a KGB defector. This book in first edition go for hundreds, not $1,000, okay? This book here, Perestroika Deception, I paid like $40 for it. It's at about the $400 mark last time I checked. KGB defector, you read through them. He's telling us in the 80s, maybe late 70s, of what is coming to the West, his predictions, and how this is going to play out. And a lot of them you'll find have come to pass. Very interesting individual. Another guy to check out would be Yuri Bezmenov, who was a KGB defected to Canada. His job in the KGB was to disrupt and corrupt Indian culture in society. And you'll have to look into him. He's on YouTube. He was interviewed by G. Edward Griffin, incredible historian that I'll cover in the second part of this series. So yeah, good money books, huh? Let's go here. Counter Coup by Kermit Roosevelt. Give you a good look at that, first edition. This is the struggle for the control of Iran. Kermit Roosevelt played a prominent role in overthrowing the democratically elected Mossadegh in the 50s and replacing him with the Shah, from the horse's mouth, right here. I actually know an individual, which maybe I'll get on video. He's been out there publicly, but I know him personally, and he was actually involved with overthrowing Latin American country. The books, if you want to get started with topics on this, there's a book called All the Shah's Men and The Economic Hitman. And those are very revealing as to how this works and the techniques. And so, yeah, this book is about $100 book. Picked it up for a couple bucks. Kermit Roosevelt. Again, I've always found that reality is much stranger than fiction. Okay, do I want to do that book? Okay, we'll do this book. Not a huge money book, but a highly suppressed book. Now it's in publication. Political Powerology by Andrew Lobaczewski. This book was heavily suppressed. I'm going to put this in short. Okay, again, I can't give dissertations, but this guy was a scientist in Poland. He was there when the Nazis took over and when the Soviets replaced. And they studied, him and his group of scientists studied the different leaders of both parties. Political Powerology is a study of evil. He noticed and recognized common characteristics of all these people. And what it comes down to is the psychopathic personalities that come to be in these positions of power. They gravitate towards these positions. Very interesting book. You also read something by Robert Hare, who wrote Without Conscience, who is a Canadian, I think it might be a psychologist, and studied psychopathy in the prison system. So this book is a little bit technical, it's a little bit dense, a little bit dated, But nonetheless, it's a very important book to read on these people in power, their characteristics. It's a little disturbing to say the least. So that's Political Powerology, probably 25 to 40 bucks. So, but that's an offshoot from the higher end ones. Maybe I'll cover it a bit more in the second part if you're interested in knowing a little bit more about that. Okay, let's jump to something else here. Carol Quigley, Tragedy and Hope. You ever hear of this book? Quigley taught Rhodes Scholars. If he was a Georgetown professor. This book in first edition goes for hundreds, not $1,000. Okay, the original plates of this book were destroyed. Quigley believed that a global elite basically should rule us. He believed in that ideology, and he also wrote a book that I have somewhere called The Anglo-American Establishment. So he taught Rhodes Scholars, as I said. He mentored Bill Clinton, actually. Rhodes Scholars always find their ways in high positions of power. If you want to look into farther, you look into guys like Cecil Rhodes and Lord Alfred Milner. Cecil Rhodes actually dedicated in his what's it called when you die? It's his last will and testament. You can look it up, but all his great wealth to go to promoting again an Anglo-American establishment to rule the world, basically. In short, Alfred Milner picked up the torch or something called Milner's Kidney Garden. And you see a lot of these characters have a lot of different connections with each other, are always in prominent positions, and they're always working towards that goal. So Tragedy and Hope right there. It's like a cornerstone to a lot of conspiratorial works, heavily referenced book. First edition's about like $1,000 now. Pretty incredible. Okay, guys. I hope this is of interest. Let's get into this guy. Eustace Mullins, The Curse of Cain and the Demonology of History, first edition. Eustace Mullins' mentor was the great Ezra Pound. Mullins wrote a number of different works. Wasn't a big fan of the Jews, but this is the best book to have. And I've seen this book up for $500. I paid $75 for it. People are hungry for information. They're interested in the movers and shakers behind the scenes. And these books have been maintaining very strong value. So that's Eustace Mullins. That's the best one. He also wrote a history on the Federal Reserve. He did a book on Zionism, injections. Anytime you come across secret societies, whether it's Catholic and Jesuit, Jewish Zionism, Freemasonry, Jacobin Society, you name it, anything like this, Illuminati, I have some books on that. There's going to be interest. So if you see it and you can only buy it for a couple bucks, why not pick it up and experiment with it? You might get the right one. You know what I'm saying? So, hey, that's good for you. Money in the pocket, right? We go to this one. Not as big as the money as Tragedy and Hope. This is by a James Billington, Fire in the Minds of Men. Who was James Billington? For 30 years, he was the head of the Library of Congress. Very prominent historian. Origins of the Revolutionary Faith. What's he doing? He's looking at revolutions that have happened in the past. The Jacobin Society in France, the Bolsheviks in Russia, who financed these people, put them in positions of power and uprooted these countries and brought, terrible things to happen to these people. And it's an incredible book. It's about 25 bucks solid. It's out there, 25 to 40, but quite a work to read. When it comes to revolution, most revolutions, a bullet hasn't been fired. A lot of them are cultural revolutions. And Alan Watt did a lot of study on cultural revolutions, the financiers behind them. It is very interesting, but to change a people's culture. It's very sophisticated. It's scientific. And there's a lot of work out there on that subject matter. So, and that's always going to have popularity. Okay, what should we go to next, guys? Works by Henry Kissinger and Zbigniew Brzezinski. Zbigniew Brzezinski, the book to buy is the Technotronic Era, which goes for good money. Insider, the guy's got a rap sheet like you wouldn't believe. I mean, many of you may recognize this name. Well, what he's talking about in these books is, if you've ever read his works, are pretty incredible. And the Technotronic era is one to read. Henry Kissinger as well, Soviet agent. So conspiratorial work, $75. Let's go on to some more here. Let's do this one, A Study of History by Arnold Toynbee. This is a 6-volume set. This set in first edition with, like, I think it's a set of 10 or 12, about $1,000. So Toynbee was a preeminent scholar. He was, what was he? I wrote it down so I wouldn't miss it. British economic historian, professor at the International History of the London School of Economics, specialist in international affairs. The history he is writing here is contradicting narratives, as well as Carol's Quigley, that anyways I've been force-fed into school. It's incredible work. These and the connections that this guy had and the influences is pretty unbelievable. So if you'd like to look into him farther, Arnold Toynbee, I've always sold his abridged editions regularly on A Study of History, but to people that really study this, they want the unabridged versions of this work. So, that's quite spectacular. Okay, another guy is Anthony Sutton, Antony. Sutton, he wrote this book, which doesn't have high value. There's a lot of publications of this now, but we're getting into Secret Society, the Order of the Skull and Bones Society at Yale. Sutton was an incredible scholar at Stanford University. This is one of his most popular books. If you get first edition Sutton books, there is one on the financing of the technology of the Soviet Union from Western industrialists and bankers. It's a 3-volume set. It's worth hundreds of dollars. He did books on Wall Street. And what he's doing is he's following the paper trail, okay? The financing of Hitler's rise to power. A lot of people don't know, but it is in official history books, and it's even on the History Channel, of Western industrialists financing these guys. Incredible. So why would the biggest capitalists in the world finance communist regimes? So, question. Might have an answer for you. I don't know. But I think. All right, we're going to stick with Secret Societies. Morals and Dogmas by Albert Pyke. I believe when you're a 33-degree Mason, you get this book, okay? But I believe I read somewhere it's actually 15-degree. But this man was considered the Pope of Freemasonry, okay? There's actually a shrine to him in Washington, D.C. Very influential figure. And he is breaking down what Freemasonry is. Like I said, secret societies are big. Another set to get is the original 8-volume set by Albert Mackay, an Encyclopedia of Freemasonry. Okay, unabridged version, hundreds of, I think it's like $800 to $1,200. Again, Masonic is good. Secret societies are good. Like I have here, actually, Perfectibilis, the 18th century Bavarian Order Illuminati. This documents the 18th century Illuminati. Very real organization. So started by Adam Weishaupt. And anyhow, a lot of individuals of prominence involved with this. Actually, George Washington, I believe, there's about 20 letters written by him talking about this strand of Jacobinism, basically, infiltrating the Masonic lodges in the United States. And he was very concerned with this. There's actually anti-Masonry parties in this country. Also, there was anti-Catholic parties. Very interesting. There's a lot to be said about this, but I'm going to leave it at that. And let's see if you want to get, again, I'm not going to comment too heavily on this, but anything on mind control, technology, psychology is going to be pretty important. It's holding value for certainly. So I'm going to keep my comments to myself on some of these, but this is Bloodlines of the Illuminati by Fritz Springmeier. Bought it for $50. Now this book has definitely doubled and more than doubled. There's a lot to be said, but this covers prominent bloodlines and families that are in high positions, whether it be Rockefeller, Bundy, Astor. Talks about the Merovingians. I studied the Merovingians in school. Very interesting stuff right here. But these families hold great power, are connected in very many ways, and there's a lot to be said about it. But I'll leave it at that. That book, Bloodlines, has only gone up in value. Again, anything on mind control. Deeper insights into the Illuminati formula. It's about a $400 set here. Bought it for $100, like 3 years ago. I mean, it's The Mind Manipulators is another book. I did a book review on Dr. Nick Bajic's work on controlling the human mind. Very interesting subject. The mind is so malleable. The Pentagon put out a document called The Mind Has No Firewall. How easily we can be influenced. You look into Freud's nephew, Edward Bernays, who wrote a book called Propaganda. He was active in helping overthrow Latin American countries. It's a very interesting subject. This stuff can get very dark. There's a book by Senator John DeCamp, because what it will go into inevitably in a lot of this stuff is different, like child prostitution rings and pedophilia. Senator John DeCamp investigated one of these rings in Nebraska, and he wrote a book called The Franklin Scandal, or The Franklin Cover-Up, I believe. It was The Franklin Cover-Up. He didn't believe any of this was going on. DeCamp started investigating. Two of his investigators, I believe, that were close to him ended up dead. He put out the work so he wouldn't die. It was almost like protecting himself. He found in this particular case that members of the Republican Party were heavily involved with this. And again, I'm not going to get too far into it because it's pretty dark stuff. Ted Gunderson, FBI agent, has openly spoken about these terrible atrocity that goes on with these child rings. Something called the Pink Ballet affairs, the Dutroux affairs in Belgium, the Washington Madam, I believe it was. There is a lot of information out there, and it's pretty disturbing stuff. It does go on, and what you'll find is that there's members of heads of states involved. It's some incredible, damning stuff, but usually it doesn't see the light of day. There is a case with Jimmy Savile in Britain, disturbing case, the Epstein case. It's dark. Some of this stuff will lead you into that, and anyhow, be just to forewarn you, it's not pleasant. Let's switch it up a little bit, huh? Switch it up a minute. Charlotte Iserbyt, the deliberate dumbing down of America. Who was Charlotte Iserbyt? Head of Ronald Reagan's education department. This is filled with policies that came across her desk. What was going on then was the active merger of the Prussian education system with America's socialist education with America's. Another guy to read is John Taylor Gatto, dumbing us down, who also wrote The Underground History of American Education. Gatto gets into the philosophers behind modern day education and the financiers. And what you will see is that those financing it did not want to compete with you and I. They wanted to maintain their power in this system, and they weren't interested in sharing that. What do you know, right? So anyhow, through a lot of groupthink, through Pavlovian techniques, it's some very interesting stuff. But this is Charlotte Iserbyt. This book I bought for like $40. It's worth like $150, $200 today. Actually, her father was a member of the Skull and Bone Society, and it came out later. Sutton found out that he was feeding Sutton information on this society. Little known fact. But yeah, the education system is a whole nother ball game, and it's pretty incredible. It definitely doesn't encourage individualism or critical thinking. Some of you might scoff at some of this material, but I would say before you do, maybe it'd be worth looking into it a little bit and refine your thoughts on the world we live in, okay? So let's move now. Where are we moving to next? Scarlet and the Beast by John Daniels. Okay. Big set. I got this for $75. It's hard to even find out there. Last time I checked, I saw one up for $200. This is a history of French and English Freemasonry. Beautiful set. Pretty in-depth. So, whoop. That is money's bending. All right, let's see. Okay. Another guy here. James Webb, The Occult Establishment. James Webb stuff is going very hot right now. I recommend even you could buy it at its current price because someday it'll probably double or triple in value. He's studying different occult societies, okay, and people involved, and very interesting stuff. Starting to lose my mind. Starting to wonder if some of this stuff I'm jumping around a little too much, and I'm trying to remember what everyone I've done here. Let's get to the old Jews, huh? The Jewish conspiracy. Well, here's a couple for you. To Eliminate the Opiate by Rabbi Martin Antelman on the Frankish Jewish Sects and Societies. Here's another one, The Controversy of Zion by very prominent journalist Douglas Reed. Great books, always holding strong value. Okay. Here's a book. This apparently is supposed to be on a mind control slave, Bryce Taylor. Thanks for the memories. Pretty disturbing book. Again, anything like this, anything that's different, that's oddballish, is worth money. This is like an $80 to $100 book. Okay, I picked this up at a book sale for $1. All right, just it's incredible the way some of this stuff is increasing value. Here we go. You want to get Catholic conspiracy on me? Anything Jesuit, as I said before, but Avro Manhattan, Vatican Imperialism in the 20th Century. This book currently is not even on the market, what I can find. He wrote The Vatican Billions. Other guy to read into is Malachi Martin, Jesuit priest, advisor to 3 popes, and an exorcist. Irishman. So, very interesting stuff to explore. I probably set the price on this one here. I'm almost done, guys. I appreciate you, listening. I hope you find this talk a little bit of interest to you. I think this material is very interesting, and I'm going to show you one more I think I got here. But The Fifth Man by Roland Perry. It's about $80. Put that book for $10. So this material, some of it is pretty heavy. Okay, but it definitely ranges. Again, I don't recommend people necessarily start with this material. I'm gonna take the phone off and stretch my joints, but it's definitely some very interesting stuff. You can see how the value of it has increased significantly. And I think it will continue to do so as we see more information being suppressed, more voices being, suppressed as well. And it's very unfortunate, but I see this stuff only increasing in value as time goes because people are hungry for information. They want to be able to determine things for themselves and not always be told what to think. And it challenges official narratives. It challenges your own preconceived notions and belief systems. I think it's good to challenge ourselves and to refine our ways of thinking about things. This is just a smattering of material for you, but I hope you found this video to be beneficial. I'll put out a part 2 in the near future, but I'm exhausted. I've been talking for quite a while, and it's late. You're lucky I dosed up on coffee. But, I appreciate all your guys' support out there. I hope you enjoyed this video and you stay tuned in for the next one. So until next time, guys, we'll see you later.